It seems like the whole point of the 2025 Volkswagen ID Buzz is to make you smile. And in a world where so many SUVs and even some minivans are trying to seem tough and macho, it's pretty refreshing to see a car that just looks friendly and approachable. The ID Buzz is brand new for 2025, and it's kind of an in-betweener. It's not exactly an electric cargo van, and it's not exactly a gas-powered minivan either. So let's dive in, find out what it's all about, and see if we're still smiling at the end. Right off the bat, it's obvious that this design harkens back to the original VW Microbus, famous from the 60s and 70s. So you've got a very flat front face, but a pretty windswept windscreen. So the driver's not actually sitting over the front of the cab like in the original, but it's still got a very upright position. There are 3 trim levels you can choose from, starting with the base Pro S, moving into the mid-range Pro S Plus, and then finally this first edition model. One of the key features is this striking two-tone paint. Now you can get it on the mid-level trim, but it comes standard on this first edition. And this one is especially cool because it's got this shade of green called Mahi green that really pops nicely. All trims come with these adaptive headlights that turn when you turn around corners and an illuminating front badge to really amp up the charisma here. The ID Buzz has really interesting dimensions. So it's got this really long wheelbase, but overall from nose to tail, it's kind of short. And that's because the wheels are pushed all the way out to the edges. There's only a little tiny bit of overhang. And it's really accentuated by these 20-inch wheels here on this model. On top of that, it's also really tall. So you've got this really interesting shape, and compared to other minivans, it definitely stands out. In other markets, there's a short wheelbase version, but in the US, we're only getting this longer one. With that, we also get a larger electric battery stored under the floor, and that comes with a lot of weight. The ID Buzz weighs over 6,000 pounds. That's more than 3 tons of Volkswagen. Over here, once again, we've got a very tall, upright, and flat rear fascia that fits the overall design character of the car. And around on the side, there's a badge for the first edition here. Not a lot of standout features. You've got an LED light bar that goes all the way across and another big VW badge with a cute little ID Buzz logo. This is when we pop the hood to see what's powering this vehicle, but even for an EV, there's not much to see here. Under the floor of the ID Buzz, there's an 86 kilowatt hour battery pack, and you can either get 1 motor or 2 motors. So single motors are rear wheel drive, and dual motors like this one are all wheel drive. If you go with the single motor, that's got 282 horsepower, and you move up to the dual motor version and you've got 335 horses. You can find the charging port at the rear corner of the vehicle, and you can see it's still using the older CCS model. Volkswagen will be switching to the Tesla style or NACS charging port in 2026, but for now the ID Buzz gets this version. So total range is estimated at 234 miles for the single motor, and moving to the dual motor drops it down only slightly to 231 miles of range. I would say real world results are probably highly sensitive to your driving condition, your climate, and lots of other factors, so just bear that in mind. But it does charge pretty quickly. On a DC fast charger, you can go from 10% all the way to 80% in just 30 minutes. ID Buzz owners also gain access to the upgraded version of Electrify America's membership plan, so that gives you preferential treatment at public charging stations. On top of that, Volkswagen is including up to 500 kilowatt hours of charging on the house. Pricing for the ID Buzz starts at a little over $61,000, including destination charges for the base model. Now, I know people would have loved to have seen the ID Buzz be more of an everyman type of vehicle, but the other trim levels don't stray too far from that base price. The Pro S Plus starts at a little over $65,000, and the first edition is just over $67,000. Now let's see what you get for that money inside. The interior of the ID Buzz is filled with playful character. Being in here involves a lot of looking around and going, hey, neat. So to start us off, there are lots of different kinds of materials here and lots of different colors, as you can see. There's this faux wood up here, accented by what looks like aluminum, and then kind of a rubber pad down here. So an interesting mix of different textures and colors. That carries all the way throughout. So you've got this kind of light orange motif going on all the way through the doors. Over here, there's a diamond pattern with a really cool feel to it. And that rubber pad continues here in the doors and in the center console, So it feels like anything that you keep in there isn't going to be jostling around. Volkswagen basically threw the kitchen sink inside the ID Buzz in terms of standard features. Knowing that Americans were only going to get the larger, more expensive version of this car, they really made sure it was packed with stuff. So things like a heated steering wheel, 3-zone automatic climate control, and these synthetic leather seats are all standard on all models across the trim range. Speaking of these seats, they are very well padded and even have a little bit of texture around that feels like they could hold you in place a bit. But the big thing that stands out is the cushiness to them, and that's not even the most interesting feature. What's most interesting to me is that heating and ventilation and a massage function are all standard on all trim levels. Now, I say massage function in kind of quotations because it's really more of like an inflating airbag in the back of your back, more like an active lumbar support, but it's still a really interesting add-on in this car. If you've been inside of the ID4, the electric Volkswagen crossover that debuted a few years ago, then a lot of the controls may feel familiar. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I found the ID4 pretty convenient to use, but there were some weird quirks. Things like over here on the window controls, these are touch sensitive, touch capacitive buttons, and they can be tricky to learn. You have to rotate this dial to do different functions on the mirrors. You have to press a different rear button to roll down the rear windows rather than just having separate rear window controls. And when you move the steering column, this digital driver display moves with it. Again, not inherently a bad thing, it just takes a little bit of getting used to. And that's just the beginning of the quirks inside the ID Buzz. There's all kinds of other little things like this pull-out cup holder system over here. And when you use that, you have to be really careful not to accidentally press the sliding door buttons here. There's also this multifunction center console with pull-outs at the front and at the rear. But the main feature is you can pick the whole thing up and remove it if you want. There's also an available wireless smartphone charger right here next to the steering wheel, which is an interesting place for it. That's got 2 USB-C ports, and there's a third secret USB-C port up here, which was kind of a confusing place for it until I read that it's meant for dash cams, which does make a lot of sense. And then finally down here on the pedals, you've got a play icon on the accelerator and a pause on the brake pedal. There's all kinds of things in here that make it really clear Volkswagen wanted you to enjoy yourself and smile while you're in this vehicle, and that right there sums it up perfectly for me. The standard center touchscreen on all versions of the ID Buzz is this 12.9-inch screen, kind of floating here from my viewpoint on the dash. There's a lot to like here. When you pull up the icons, they're really big and easy to navigate. Very clear menus for finding parking spaces or checking your charge status. And navigation is included on all versions of the ID Buzz as well. Now, sometimes I haven't been the biggest fan of Volkswagen navigation systems, but I really like the clarity here and the graphic level. It's just giving me icons that are easy to read and making directions really easy to find. Wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto are both standard. And you'll also notice that climate controls play a really big part in the screen setup here. So you've got these kind of touch capacitive sliders down here at the bottom, and then other buttons on the bottom of the screen to bring up more involved climate controls if you want. But I think the key here is these sliders, because really easily you can reach over and just gently glide your finger to adjust the temperature on either side of the front cabin. Now this is really important because putting climate controls in the screen like this or on a slider bar can be really tricky. If they're not easy to use, it's going to be a real pain and it's going to have everyone clamoring for old school buttons and dials. Volkswagen has made a lot of improvements to make this system more responsive. So really I'm having no trouble finding the exact temperature I want and getting to it quickly. It's a little bit worrisome that Volkswagen is still doing the same thing over here on the steering wheel with your volume controls and some of your radio controls. There's a lot of opportunity to mess up and accidentally hit the wrong thing. But I will say, out of all the systems that are similar to this that I've used, this one does feel the most intuitive to me. And I think if you're buying into the whole ID Buzz philosophy and lifestyle, you really should lean in and try and use this the way that it's intended, because on paper, it's a great idea. By pressing the icon for parking, you can bring up the exterior cameras. that gives you these views from the outside of the ID Buzz. Now, the picture resolution is not the greatest I've ever seen. It looks a little bit fuzzy and blurry, but you do have a wide range of vision. And on Pro S Plus models and this first edition, you also get surround view included. So you can move to the front camera, the rear camera, the sides, or you can bring this bird's eye top-down view across the whole screen as well. I also really like that you can switch between a straightforward rear view and this more bird's eye view, and that you can move the surround view out of the way to move it across the whole screen. Of course, it's the room and the space behind the first row that really makes a microbus, and the ID Buzz carries that philosophy forward. So obviously you've got the big sliding doors that make access really easy, and then the same nice cushy seats from the front seat carry over into the back here. And not only that, I'm pretty comfortable here in the most upright position, but they'll recline a lot. So you can fully lean back and have tons and tons of space. Now, you've got similar legroom to other minivans in the class, so things like the Kia Carnival and Chrysler Pacifica, but headroom is really where the ID Buzz stands out. So there's a lot of space in here. It starts to feel cavernous very quickly. And what helps is that on this first edition model, we've got this electrochromic panoramic roof. So with a touch of a button, you can change the opacity and how much light is coming through. As with the first row, 3-stage heated seats come on the second row on all trim levels, and you can adjust them with this button right here on the door. Also on the door, a USB-C port right here and your rear climate controls up here. Now, this button threw me off at first. I couldn't tell what it was because it's in a weird position and it's got a strange icon on it, but it's the window controls. With the touch of a button, the power windows will roll all the way back here in a sliding motion. It's an interesting decision. It's definitely a charming feature that harkens back to that original VW bus. I'm not sure that it adds much more to the experience than a traditional rolling down window would have done, but I get what they're trying to do, lean into the history. It's pretty cool. You've also got 2 pouches on the backs of the front seats right here. So maybe you can slide a phone in here and an iPad or laptop in here. Overall, this is a very spacious back seat and you really feel the amount of space back here. On top of that, there's lots of maneuverability, there's lots of modular features, and that's what's really gonna make the ID Buzz stand out from some of the minivans it's competing against. Good and bad in the third row of the ID Buzz. The good is that I can even fit back here at all, because on lots of 3-row SUVs, vans, really any type of 3-row vehicle, I usually am cramped. I'm 6 feet tall. Obviously, this is primarily for children, but it serves as a really good indicator of the space in here, and I've got a lot of it. If you need to adjust the space, that's fine too, because these seats will slide front and back. You can also recline them. This is the most reclined position, but doing it is a little tricky. You have to reach between this crevice and pull a strap to do it, but you can do it. Most versatile of all is that the third row can be removed completely if you need to. On top of that, the second row is also really maneuverable. We've got that seat right there tilted all the way forward. This one's moved all the way back, but you can pull this strap and fold it down. On both sides of this vehicle, you've got a nice big window and cool looking little cubbies with a USB-C on either side. This side is a little bit bigger though. So you've got an armrest that's larger than the one on the right side. And you've also got a big old cup holder space down here that the right side does not get. But they both get this neat little cutout of the van itself, which adds some fun to the third row. Altogether, the third row has space, it has charisma, it has maneuverability. It's really feeding into the ID Buzz mantra. The ID Buzz comes with a hands-free liftgate. So with the key, you can come up and just put your foot under and the tailgate will automatically lift up. It creates a huge opening here, which would make it easy to load in equipment of any shape and size. Now, behind the third row, you've got 18.6 cubic feet of space. Typically in a minivan, you're gonna get a lot more than that, sometimes as much as double that space. This is still plenty of room to handle luggage and, duffel bags and things like that. Plus, on the first edition, you've got this Flexboard cargo management system from Volkswagen, which includes these small storage bins in the bottom and this tray here to keep things out of sight. The other function of this floor is that when you fold down the third row of seats, it creates a long flat panel. So if you are loading TVs or big electronics, it's got one flat plane. That's a key point because versatility is obviously a strength of the ID Buzz. So while you may not get as much overall capacity as some minivans on the surface, you've got a lot of room to play with. And with both the second and third row folded down, you've got a cavernous amount of space, about 146 cubic feet inside. Behind the wheel in the 2025 ID Buzz, finally, after years and years of seeing concepts and hearing about plans, we're finally on the road in this thing. In the first edition, the dual motor is standard, so that means we've got 335 horsepower to play with. Now, that's a lot of power, and even though this thing is heavy, it gets going quick. It's not like stabs of acceleration, but it will pick up and carry speed very quickly. All you have to do is hit the play button. Now, as for the pause button, or the brake pedal, there are a few things that you should know. First of all, it takes quite a bit of effort from your leg into the pedal to get the stopping force that is required. And what I mean by that is this thing, like I said, is carrying a lot of weight. To bring it under control, I'm kind of surprised at how deep into the brake pedal I have to go to get that response. I'm sure the brakes are plenty strong because once I really dig into it, the strength is there. But I'm surprised that Volkswagen didn't program more heftiness or more sensitivity to the brake pedal so that you don't have to go that deep. The other thing that you should know is that the ID Buzz does not have one pedal driving. So that's an EV feature that a lot of owners like, where you really only have to use the accelerator, because once you come off the accelerator, the car will automatically brake itself. The ID Buzz certainly slows itself down and recaptures energy when you're off the accelerator, but it's not going to come to a full and complete stop. It's not as aggressive as some other EVs you may have driven. So if you're considering an ID Buzz, I would say definitely test drive it, see how you feel, getting used to all the controls, and see if this is a good fit for your driving style. You definitely have to be aware of how you're driving because this is a very large vehicle, and even though it's playful and fun, it can get up to speed in a hurry. It's kind of deceivingly large on the road. When you're sitting in it static and kind of looking around at all the space, your mind goes, okay, this is a big vehicle. But when you're driving it, it moves so effortlessly that it does trick you a little bit into thinking that it's smaller. That said, I've liked the ride quality so far. I think that really long wheelbase is helping it meter out bumps and cracks in the road. And even with these 20-inch wheels, I haven't been getting too much vibration or any annoying chattering or anything like that. I think the ride quality so far is nice and supple and a strong point. On the other hand, I have noticed more road noise and wind noise than I would say is typical for a car in this price range. Now, the reason for that is obvious. We've got a giant refrigerator-shaped vehicle with a nearly vertical windscreen. So we're just creating more wind resistance, and that's coming through. Same with road noise. It's just a big empty echo chamber in a lot of ways. And so you're going to be more aware of the noises that are going on around you, plus not having an engine in the car. This is all part of the personality and charm and experience of having an ID Buzz. But again, I do think you should take a few minutes and drive it around and see if it's really what you're expecting. You do have some options in terms of driving style in this car. The first thing you can do is switch the gear selector from D into B. So as soon as I come off the accelerator in B, as in braking, I'm immediately getting more aggressive regenerative braking. So somewhat closer to that one pedal driving experience, not all the way. The other thing we can do is switch the driving modes. So we've been riding around in comfort. You can also go to eco. You can also go to sport. So we're about to go up a pretty steep incline here. Let's go into sport and see how it responds. Doesn't feel all that different to me. I was expecting a little bit more unleashed power, a little bit more raw acceleration. It doesn't feel all that different. You know, some EVs have this kind of freight train sensation where it's relying on all that torque to build up speed. So you're not gonna get super sharp jabs, like supercar type of lunges forward. Instead, you've got a building of momentum, and that's what we have here, which makes sense. The thing is shaped like a brick. and it's more likely to be hauling heavy loads, so I understand. I was just excited to punch it, that's all. When you switch into sport mode, it makes adjustments to the powertrain, the suspension, and the steering. And the point is to make it feel more agile. But the funny thing is, the ID Buzz feels plenty agile no matter what. I think the heavy battery under the floor is creating a low center of gravity, and I really like the steering feel. So for an EV, it's really responsive, feels crisp and easily predictable, doesn't take too much effort, but also doesn't feel loosey-goosey either. It's just the right mix for this car. And it's got an excellent turning radius, as I'll demonstrate with this U-turn here. Cleared that curb with plenty of space, no problem. This thing can make really drastic turns to get you in and out of tight spaces. Well, we've been through the 2025 ID Buzz from head to tail, and I'm still smiling. This car is a lot of fun inside and out, and also surprisingly nimble on the road too. As far as pros, every trim level of the ID Buzz is stuffed with standard features. It's also got quirks that are actually helpful, and there's a fun and playful vibe to the interior. Plus, I haven't gotten tired of this paint yet. As for cons, it is a bit on the pricey side. You could also argue that more traditional gas-powered minivans have more everyday practicality. And finally, I would really like to see some improvements to that brake pedal to give you a little bit more confidence on the road. All in all, the ID Buzz delivers on its promise to bring something new and fresh and exciting, and most of all, fun to the car world. This is an electric vehicle that emphasizes space and practicality while successfully taking some of that classic 60s and 70s charisma and injecting it into a new era. That's all for today. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to click like and subscribe so you can see more videos just like this one. If you want to learn more about the 2025 Volkswagen ID Buzz or any of its competitors, click the link in the description below.